Good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is my second talk, and for those of you who heard last night, I want to connect the two talks so you understand what I'm trying to do this Shabbaton. So last night we spoke about whether there is a conflict or congruence that is working together between Jewish values and Western values. And we saw it's a mixed bag. Sometimes it fits, sometimes it doesn't. This morning, I'm coming from a different perspective. What I'd like to do is show you what Judaism, particularly the Torah, can help Western society in looking at moral problems. Because I think in the public discussions that occur not only in universities, but also think tanks and other places, I think that the Torah has a very important role to play that can help frame moral questions in a better way. Whether they choose to take the solution that the Torah says or not, that's a separate question. But I think that the Torah has something to contribute so that life for everybody could be better and more meaningful.
Ez az előadásban miért folytatja a tegnap?
No, that's not what I said.
Ez az előadás valamennyiben folytatja a tegnapit, mert tegnap volt szó arról, hogy hogyan összeegyeztetni nyugati és zsidó értékeket. Ma valamennyiben annyiban más lesz, hogy igazából a zsidó értékek igazából hozzá is tudnak járulni a nyugati társadalom fejlődéséhez és javához, hogyha esetleg meghallgatnák a Tóra véleményét bizonyos kérdésekben, amik ténylegesen fölmerülnek a mindennapi életben.
How did you do? Okay? Good translation? Yeah. Okay, good. So what I want to talk about this morning is the development of an autonomous vehicle. In the news, it's called the Google car. Right? I don't know if you heard of the Google car. So it refers to a motorized robotic vehicle that can act without any human interaction. It can function in unfamiliar surroundings, and it can achieve a set of goals or directives by making decisions. So this is a robot that is operating, I don't know, a 2-ton vehicle, and it can make its own decisions based on whatever is going on without any human interaction. And it has a decision-making system that functions independently based on an algorithm that has already been developed, and it's active in real time and doesn't need any human being to tell it what to do.
Még egy vezető nélküli autó lesz ez a Google car, és ez, hogy ez szabadnak gondolom erről lesz.
That's not what I said.
Summarized.
Summarized. Fine, that's okay. So, these cars are coming to the roads. According to what we could, Volvo, BMW, Google, Tesla, and other manufacturers say that they will begin marketing this type of car on our roads within 2 years of today. By 2020, they will be commercially available and that will be on the road. So we're talking about 4 years from now. The question is, what are the implications of having these type of cars driving? So in California and Nevada, which are one of the leading states in making laws regarding technology, the law says that these cars must have a steering wheel and pedals. Question is why? That is, just imagine you're going to sit in a car and you don't need to do anything. You just type where you want to go and the car is just going to go there. So in California, they say the rule is you have to have a steering wheel. Okay. It has to have pedals, brakes and gas. But it means that maybe in other places, you get into a car and there are no pedals no brakes, there's nothing. You just sit and you're going for the ride.
Night Rider.
What?
Night Rider. It's a movie.
Yeah, that's right.
David Hasselhoff.
That's right. That's right. But he had a wheel. So now they're talking about maybe no wheels. It's very, very scary. And this is what I want to focus on. Sort of the moral implications of having these sets of cars in our society.
Ez érdekel most minket, hogy mi lesz, hogyha ez meg lesz, annyira nem sokára lesz, 4 év múlva most már várható, hogy ténylegesen forgalomba kerül. És van egy olyan ország, amerikai egyik államban, ahol kiadnak ilyen nagyon sok ilyen törvényeket ezzel kapcsolatban, azt mondták, hogy kell, hogy legyen benne egy kormány, egy pedál, de máshol meg nem mondták, hogy kell, akkor nem lesz se kormány, se pedál, csak lenni fog magától.
So driving is a fundamental action in everyday life. How many people here have a driver's license? So most of you drive. What? Somebody say something?
No, I said most of us.
Yeah, most people have, and they drive, and we know, even if we don't think about it, it involves interactions with lots and lots of dilemmas. Lots of dilemmas. Some of them, a significant portion of the decisions and choices that we make in a car are whether you're going to follow the law or you're not going to follow the law, right? You have a speed limit. Are you going to drive above the speed limit or below the speed limit? There's an old lady who wants to cross the road. Are you going to stop for her or are you going to just let her wait, right? Somebody wants to pass in front of you. Do you wait for the person and let him go or not? Or when I was driving with Thomas, we were driving behind a car. We're going to pass the car before the truck comes or not, right? We had to decide what to do. And he made the right decisions because I'm here. Thank God. So there's lots and lots of little decisions that are, we might say, they're not very important. That is whether we follow the law or we don't follow the law. These cars could be easily programmed to always follow the law. That is, it's going to stop at a red light. It's going to stop at every stop sign. It's going to only drive the speed limit. Just imagine that this car is always going to go by the law, which is a problem. What if you need to drive faster because of an emergency? How are you going to handle this? That is, you can't press a button to say, go faster, go faster. No, it's the speed limit, it's the speed limit. So we'll see about this. There are other decisions that are not about legal or illegal. That they are what is right or what is not right. And the question is, how do we get machines to make a decision that morally this is the right decision, and you have to make this decision, and morally this is the wrong act and you should not make it. That is what I want to focus on today.
Ezeknek az autóknak egy csomó döntést meg kell hozni, amik első látásra nem túl fontosak, mert most vannak olyan dolgok, hogy mit tudom én, hogy most betartja a sebességhatárt. Hát be kell tartani, az autó be fogja tartani a sebességhatárt, ez nem feltétlenül. Hát jó, de még azon túl is van ilyen, hogy mondjuk valaki ott egy gyalogos a zebránál átengedni egy öreg nénit, hogy lassan megy át, és nem lehet az autónál felülírni, hogy én most sietni akarok. Szóval van ilyen, hogy vész esetén gyorsabban akarok menni. De azt mondom, hogy még ezen túl is van olyan dilemmák, olyan morális dilemmák, amiket most fogom mondani, amiket egy gépet nem biztos, hogy meg fog tudni hozni, és ez még nem arról van szó, hogy most nem jogos dolgot csinálni, megszegni a szabályt, hanem mégis, majd fog mondani erre példát.
So, as long as a person is driving his car intentionally, then if I'm driving, then I make decisions that are based upon my best judgment and my consciousness. I have a conscience that tells me what is right and what is wrong, and I make decisions based on how I see the world. Now just imagine this car. Someone has to program the car to act in every single situation. That is, there needs to be a group of human beings sitting in a room, imagining every single scenario. Because you can't have a car go in the street and then all of a sudden say, I don't know what to do here. And just all of a sudden flash a light, you take over. You know, and you're reading a book, you're listening to music, you're on a Skype, I don't know what people are going to do in the car. Right? But all of a sudden there's like this alarm, and then you have to, whoa, what am I going to do? You might not have time to react. So the philosophical problem here is that we're going to have to agree on a moral or a morality that is universal. From a Jewish perspective, there's no problem because we believe that there's a universal morality that the Torah tells us. But in Western society, people have different views. Some people say it's okay to do, you know, let's say, kill in order to save a life. Maybe that, you know, the life of children are worth more than the life of an older person. There's lots of different ways that people have different morals of how they make decisions. But with this car, you're going to have to figure out what is the morality that this car is going to behave under, and everybody has to agree to this morality. And we see from a practical situation that there is a need for a universal morality, which is exactly what the Torah stands for.
Ez nagyon érdekes, mert akkor ezek szerint be kell tanítani a gépet előre minden lehetséges szituációra. Minden lehetséges szituációra be kell tanítani a gépet. Tehát nem lehet azt csinálni, hogy a gép megáll, és azt mondja, jó, erre nem tanítottak meg, mostantól te vezetsz, és akkor közben valami könyvet olvas, és akkor csukd be és vezess te. Ha nem lesz ilyen, akkor meg kell tanítani mindenre, és meg kell tanítani, milyen szituációban milyen döntés helyes és nem helyes. Ez már morális kérdésre van szó. És ez azt jelenti, hogy meg kell állapodnia az embereknek abban, hogy mi helyes és mi nem helyes. Mi azt gondoljuk zsidóként, hogy van ilyen dolog. A Tóra az, hogy megmondja minden szituációra, hogy mi helyes és mi nem helyes. Igen. És akkor most ezek szerint a kénytelenek a... Tisztán, kösz. Ja. És akkor most már a nem zsidóknak is meg kell egyezniük egy moralitásban emiatt.
You're looking at me as if I understand. Okay. So I want to establish now, how do we know that the Torah has universal morality? So we find in the Torah a lot of moral commandments. Certain things that we are required to do, and certain things that we are prohibited from doing. Right? We call this prohibitive commandments and prescriptive commandments. That this Torah prescribes certain behavior that you have to do, and certain behaviors the Torah says don't do. Some people use the term negative and positive, right? Negative commandments, positive commandments. I don't like the word negative commandments because there's nothing negative about it. It means don't do and then do. So, according to some opinion, general moral behavior is required because of the mitzvah ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. The Torah says that you have to love your fellow Jews like yourselves. Therefore, you have a moral obligation to behave morally. However, there are other rabbis that say, no, that's not where really morality comes from. There's another commandment. That commandment is found in Dvarim, Deuteronomy, chapter 6, verse 18. And it says, and you shall do what is right and good. Hatov v'hayashar.
Ez a Tórában a forrásai annak, hogy morálisan erkölcsösen kell viselkedni, megosztanak a rabbiknak a véleménye, hogy ez hol található. Egyik vélemény szerint szeresd a fele barátodat, mint magadat. Közismert törvénye, akkor morálisan kell viselkedni. A másik vélemény szerint rászítálhatod be a sárvénynél, hogy cselekedd a jót és az egyeneset az örökkévaló szemében. Ez a forrása.
The Ramban lived at 1194 to 1270, and he wrote a parish, a commentary on the Torah. And he writes as follows. He says, firstly, God said that you should observe his laws and statutes as he commanded you. But now he says, in areas where he didn't command you, that is, he did not tell you how to behave, God says, give heart to do what is right and good in his eyes. For he is loving, righteous, and good. And this is an important matter, because the Torah cannot detail all of a person's behavior to his neighbors and friends, business dealings, communal affairs, and politics. After having specified so many things that you shouldn't do, now the Torah says in a general rule, a person should do the good and the right in every situation.
Rambam írja erre utóbbi mondatra a magyarázatában, hogy ez olyan esetekre vonatkozik, amikor a Tóra nem szól, mert a Tóra nem tud minden esetről szólni, minden szituációt leírni, de nagyon sok esetben megmondja, mi a helyes, mi a nem helyes, és ebből az ember feladata, hogy kitalálja, levezesse, hogy akkor ezek alapján mi lenne az, és a szívét is úgy vezérelni, hogy akkor azt csinálni, hogy az örökkévaló szemében helyes, amit az örökkévaló helyesnek lát ez alapján.
So from these words we see that in every situation there is an absolute good and right decision for that situation. It's just the question is, well, what is it? How do we discover that? So when you learn Torah, you realize to apply the principles, and you find that in this situation you need to do this, in this situation you need to do that. But so apply the Torah's way of thinking to this car. We are going to have to take this computer system and figure out in every situation what should it do. Okay, so now let's start with examples. Okay? So imagine there is this Google car. What is the common name in Hungarian for a person? That we're going to put him in this car. Yoshi. Yoshi. Yes? Yoshi?
Joe.
Joe? Fine. Okay, we're putting Yoshi in this car. He's probably not going to live very long. So just prepare for that. Don't get too attached to him. Right? So he is sitting in the car, and his car is driving itself. Suddenly, in front of him, there's a big truck, and it slams on the brakes. Okay? This car has two options. It analyzes the situation very quickly. It could either swerve to the right, where there's a shoulder, so the car can go into the shoulder, or hit the truck in front of him. The truck in front of him. If he hits the car in front of him, Yoshi is dead. If he swerves, there's a man riding a bicycle. Okay? With a little kitten, cute cat, sitting in the basket. Okay? They are going to be killed. Okay? The car has to make a decision. Kill the traveler in the car, or kill the person who is riding a bicycle with a cat. What should the car do? Right? This can happen in every situation. That is, someone is going to have to sit in a room, imagine every single scenario, and tell this car how to behave. So what is the morally correct decision for the car to make? Do we kill the traveler, or do we kill the bicyclist? I'm asking you, what do you think?
There is no option not to kill anyone?
Correct.
Can I translate first? Az volt a kérdés, hogyha nagyon jön szembe egy nagy teherautó, és ki tud térni, de jobb oldalán meg egy biciklis, és nagyon aranyos kis gyerek van, egy kis cica van ott, és akkor, hogy ő elütheti, és akkor ő túlél, vagy mehet előre, és akkor a vezető nem él túl. Szóval ezt is be kell programoznunk a programozóknak.
The car is wrong made because they did a button eject, so the person who is inside is
Fine. Right above this car, there's a helicopter. Right? You can. Let's say behind it there's a tree. Let's say you're under a bridge. You're gonna fly. The guy's gonna die. You see, in Torah, when we learn Torah, there are two types of questions that you can argue about. It's called din in Metzias, right? That is, we have a machlokes b'metzias and machlokes b'din. We have a debate on reality, or we have a machlokes, a debate on what is the din, what is the rule. We usually don't allow argument with regard to reality. Why? Because the rabbi who is giving you the case can always change reality so that you can't avoid the question that I asked. That is, we are trying to say, I created a specific situation because I want to figure out whose life comes first. So you want to say, well, let's get away from this question because you don't have to kill anybody, right? So I'm going to change reality to always get you back to my original question. We are going to have two people who you're going to have to make a decision. Which one is going to live, which one is going to die. And how do you make those decisions?
I think that even those programmers who program the car, even they have this concept which we had the higher Hokkaido.
Well, we'll see. You're trying to answer. You need to translate.
That is what's his question.
No, but tell them about machlokes b'metzias and machlokes.
Okay, so
I don't want to argue about metzias.
Okay. Az volt a jó ennek a kérdés, hogy miért nem katapultálják a Józsit, hogy akkor mindenki jól lakna és megmaradna életben, mert repül fölötte egy helikopter, mert nem szabad ilyen kérdezni általában olyan talmudi vitákban, mert nem ez volt, tudjuk, hogy nem ezt akarta kérdezni a rabbi, hanem azt akarta kérdezni, hogy maga a morális dilemma, hogy kinek az élete fontosabb, ezt akarta kérdezni, és ez nem lehet így, hogy akkor jó, akkor valahogy más vagy oldjuk meg, szóval ez egy kikerülése a kérdésnek.
Okay. So, according to the Torah, the operative principle is that there are things that the Torah says, these are the things that a person should do and live by them and not die by them. Right? That's the Rabbi Akiva's position in Bava Metzia. That is, we have a requirement to preserve our own life, and if it conflicts with maintaining the Torah, our life comes first. So what does that mean? So if, let's say, in order to save our own life, we need to break the Torah, like eating pork or breaking Shabbat, we are required to break the law and preserve our own life. Okay? Except in three situations. Taking a life of another person, worshipping idols, that is converting to another religion, or having a relation with a woman that we are not allowed according to the Torah. Those three things we are never allowed to do, even at the cost of our own life. Okay, so now we have this situation that we have to ask ourselves, do we have an obligation to die here rather than kill this person? Or that since we are not making the decision, we are just sitting in the car, that we are not doing anything actively, then passively we are killing the bicyclist, and then Yoshi can continue and live a happy and long life. Right? That really is the question. So the Gemara in Bava Metzia gives a very interesting case. There are two people who go into the desert. Two people. And they have one bottle of water. Okay? One of them puts it in his backpack, he has it with him, and they realize that in the desert, that if they share the water bottle, they both die. If one drinks, he will live, the other one will die. Question is, what do they do with the water?
Share the other.
Share? So they both die.
They both die. No, I think that in this case you have to save first yourself.
Save yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody agree with that?
Yeah.
Is that moral?
Die with equality.
Die with equality. That's the first opinion in the Gemara. The first opinion of the Gemara says they should share the water. Why? Because a Jew should not watch another Jew die. Comes Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says, Chayecha kodmin. Your life comes first. Your life comes first. So what does that mean, your life comes first? So let's say we are in the desert, right? And it's his bottle of water, but I'm having it. I'm holding it. It's in my bag. So what does he say to me? Give me my water, right? Then what, do I have a moral obligation to give it back to him? Do I?
This case was not discussed in the Gemara.
But I'm applying Rabbi Akiva's logic, right?
Okay.
The case in the Gemara doesn't say who the water belongs to.
Yes.
But if you look at the Meforshim, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Maharsha brings it. But one of the Meforshim says, if the water belongs to one of them, then Chayecha Kodmin. But if it's not, does he have a moral obligation to? So do I have to give you your water? Or can I hold it? What's the moral thing to do here? I have an obligation to save my life, right? He has an obligation to save his life. But I have his water. Do I have to give him his water?
Fight.
Yes?
No, fight.
No.
You fight.
Are you allowed to? Let's say he has the water and it's his water. But I am the Hungarian champion of judo. And I can take the water bottle from him like that.
Finally, the stronger guy will take the water.
Yes?
The ownership doesn't count, because you said there are only 3 things which are important in life-death situation, and ownership is not one of them.
Ownership is not. So I don't have to give you the water bottle. But what if he's the judo master? And he can take the water from me?
Then it's his choice.
Then is he allowed, according to the Torah, to beat me up to take the water? That is,
beating is considered killing or not?
no, it's not
It's not
considered.
considered killing.
But now let's forget this for just a question. It's an interesting question. But let's look at the act of drinking water. Because this is going to be the key to understand this car. Every sip that I drink from this water, what am I doing?
Saving your life.
Saving my life. But every drink that I'm taking, what is it doing to him? Killing him.
Killing him, yeah.
Right? We have the same act, at the same time saving a life, and the same act taking a life. That is, this car that we are going to make swerve, right? Or hit the car, the act is going to save one life, but the same act is going to kill a life. The Gemara and Jewish law says you are not allowed to do an act that takes a life. But what if the act of taking a life also saves a life? Am I allowed to do that? So according to the Gemara and Rabbi Akiva in the water, what is dominant? The act of saving a life. Which means I am allowed to drink the water, even though every time I drink, it is slowly and slowly killing you. But if, so now plug it into the car. So if the car is going to swerve, right? It's going to kill the bicyclist, but it's going to save my life. Is it an act of killing or an act of saving? So we're going to say it is an act of doing both. Doing both. Okay.
Szóval arról volt szó, hogy zsidó jog szerint az ember életvédelme nagyon fontos dolog, és csak 3 dolog írhatja fölül. Igazából a 3-nak az egyik az, hogy ölni. Tehát nem, inkább kell az embernek meghalnia, mint hogy ölnie kelljen. És ez egy közismert dolog. És ehhez képest azt találjuk a Talmudban, hogy amikor ketten mennek egy sivatagban egy vízzel, és csak egyikük tudja meginni a vizet, akkor mégis azt mondja Rabbi Akiva, hogy igya meg a vizet, pedig hát akkor ez nem az az eset, hogy öl, az nem az eset, hogy öl, mert ugyanaz az ivás, ami öl, ugyanaz őt öli, és a te életedet megmenti, hogyha a két dolog együtt van, akkor igazából melyik részét tekintjük, azt, hogy ez igazából egy mentés és nem egy ölés, akkor ez mégsem ütközik ezzel a tórai elvvel, hogy inkább halj meg csak ne jöjjön, mert nem is ölsz, hanem mentesz. És ugyanez van az autónál, és ott is inkább mentesz.
A két eset nem hasonlít egymáshoz.
Igen,
az egyikben te hozzá se nyúlsz a másikhoz, ő azt okozott, hogy akkor nem lesz az, ami őt megmentse.
Másikban sem, mert
Az autónál konkrétan valakit, aki nincsen veszélybe, te gyakorlatilag belevezetsz és megölöd.
Már ott mindenki
Arról-
veszélyben van, már
te
kimentek
gyakorlatilag
szívvel
megölöd a
autóra.
másikat.
Arról nem is beszélve, hogy amikor az autó dönt, hát nem te döntesz. Hát az autó dönt,
Igen.
nem te döntesz.
Jó, de valaki programozta, és aki programozta,
Jobb vagy rossz?
tehát így van.
Igen.
Hát az a kérdés, hogy kell programozni, hogy kell beprogramozni. Hogy ezt az elvet, ezt a Rabbi Guy elvet,
De az autónak nincs
Az
én.
emberi
Az
fejlődés.
autónak nincs én.
Not the same case.
A programozó az.
So wait,
A
I
programozó
think it's the same case.
Ez nem a gép.
El kell dönteni, hogy ilyen esetben a vezetőnek az életet kell megmennie.
De az már nem az ő élet. Nem vezető, miért vezető?
Jó, de ez az elv, az eldöntheti
Hát az autó a saját élet.
Are you saying it's not the same case, or is he saying it's not the same
No.
case?
A
They both are wrong. Say it in English, I'll tell you why it's the same case. I'll show you, it's not exactly the same case, but I'm trying to focus in on the action. Why is the action so important? There's a Tosfot that I want to bring into this discussion. So you'll see that maybe your arguments now are going to be even louder. The law, according to the Gemara in Sanhedrin, says that if somebody, God forbid, grabs a Jew, okay, Reuven, right? People grab him, let's say ISIS, right? Really bad people. ISIS say to him, go kill this person or we'll kill you. So he has to say, kill me. He's not allowed to go kill. But what if they say to him, listen, we are going to push you off a building on top of babies. That is, you're not going to kill them actively, you're just going to fall on them. And you're going to kill them by falling. Are you allowed, and you're going to live. Are you allowed to do that? That is, you are passively killing someone. Tosfot says there, yes. That is, if you are not actively killing, but only passively killing, that is allowed.
Required.
What?
Required, or is it just allowed?
Allowed. It's not required. It's not required. It's allowed. So, in this car, it is what we would say for the person in the car, it's passive killing. That is, he's not doing anything. He's simply allowing the car to swerve and hit the bicyclist. Because he could override it, let's say. Let's assume he could override it.
But the car is actively programmed to do that.
Correct. But is he doing anything?
So what if he is the programmer?
Oh, so that's the question. That's to me, that's the more important question. I should tell you sort of the background to this topic. So I'm involved in a research group that is interested in working with Google to come up with all the moral problems that this kind of car will cause. And we've written material, about 30, 40 pages of it. So I'm just bringing you sort of what we would say in Hebrew we call it mamtakim, the candy, all the sweet stuff that is from the paper. But there's lots and lots of other issues. And I think the programmers have a huge moral responsibility. And they have to be aware of what they're doing. I don't know that anyone is sitting and thinking about how this is going to affect human lives in the street. People just say, it's a car, it's it's not so simple. It's not so simple. Okay. Reb Chaim Soloveitchik, right? Reb Chaim Brisk. So he does not distinguish between active or passive killing. He says that distinction between active and passive, he rejects. But what he says is the real distinction is an act of saving a life and an act of taking a life. That is why I think it's the same case. It's not a question of passive or active. It's whether the act that I'm doing is saving a life or taking a life. If my intention is to take a life, you're not allowed to do it. If my act is to save, the intention is to save a life, but in the process it's going to take a life, I'm not giving a halachic ruling, but I want to say maybe it would be allowed. Okay? We will see enough, more examples, and then we can figure this out. Okay. Now.
That's the question.
Yeah.
Amikor valaki azt mondja, hogy öld meg a másikat, és akkor nem ölek meg téged, az nem saving a life?
I wanted to ask the same question as you had.
Yes.
What's the difference then when somebody says that you have to kill or you will kill you? It also seems to be an act of saving his own life.
Correct, but you're not allowed to save your own life by taking another life.
So what's the difference?
The act of killing comes first before the saving.
If it comes the basachas.
So that's the moral dilemma, that it's not clear. But we can see from Rabbi Akiva allowing you to drink the water but that act you're not taking a life actively. Right? Whereas when you were saying to save your own life, you're killing.
It's an active-passive distinction is toisves.
Correct, but I'm saying that you can't get away from that. Even Reb Chaim, although he doesn't accept that, he wants to make a different chiluk. I think that the chiluk that Toisves makes is a valid, and we should always keep that in mind, so that if you have act of taking a life that is passive, maybe it's going to be mutter. Whereas if you have an act that is active and taking a life, for sure that's awesome.
I want to translate.
Yeah.
Szóval két ilyen lehetséges megkülönböztetést mondott, amit meg lehet oldani ezeket látszólag hasonló helyzeteket, aminél igazából elég különbözőek a döntések. És az egyik az a Tosfotban szerepel, hogy ez az aktívan ölünk, vagy passzívan. Például egy aktív ölés, hogyha valaki megfenyeget, hogy téged kell ölni, vagy téged ölünk meg, akkor aktív ölésre kényszerítés, az nem tesszük ezt. Vagy pedig passzív, hogy azt mondjuk, hogy jó, akkor ledobunk téged, iszlám állam elra vagy embert, és azt mondjuk, hogy ledobunk téged egy épület tetejére, babákra fogsz esni, és ők meg fognak halni, és te túl fogod élni, akkor az passzív ölés. Ez a Tosfot, és a másik Reb Chaim Brisk, ő pedig mondta ezt, hogy valójában a cselekedet, amit csinálsz, az egy életmentő cselekedet, vagy egy élet elvevő cselekedet. Ezt a kettőt kell valahogy igazából kombinálni, összes esetek teljesen triviális.
I take it he didn't accept my answer. You're like,
I didn't understand maybe in this school.
Okay. Did you want to ask a question?
Yes. About your dilemma. If you are...
It's not mine, it's theirs. I don't want to ever be in that dilemma. God forbid.
I mean the situation with the cars. If you are the driver, then what should you do?
The traveler. Because there is no driver.
No, but let's say it's not a Google car, it's a normal car. And you are driving.
So a good question. It's a good question. It seems that lechora, we should probably say that you are not allowed to take a life in order to save a life. There's a Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish was asked of an actual case that happened, which I'm going to bring up a little later. Chazon Ish, the question was, there was a man who was driving his car and he lost his brakes and he had to make a decision whether to kill one person or a group. And he made a certain decision and he asked the Chazon Ish whether he made the right decision. So we're going to get to that a little bit later. So that's an actual case that happened. So we'll see from there and then we'll... But again, I think when there's a human driver, we allow for lots of other things. Whereas this machine, you have to program it. When you're in the field, God forbid, you don't get to. You have a split second to make a decision. This is a group sitting in a very air-conditioned rooms with coffee and earphones and popcorn, and they have to decide, who do we kill? Do we kill the driver, Yoshi, or do we kill the bicyclist? What if there are two people on the bicycle? Does it change? Does it change the moral equation that, I have an obligation to save my life, so maybe to save my life at the cost of one person, cost of two people? What if the two people on the bicycle are Nobel Prize winners in physics and chemistry? And I am nobody. Is their life more important than me? Maybe there are two homeless people that are drunk and just laying on the road. and and the person that's in the car is the Nobel Prize for medicine and will cure cancer. Who should die? It's a serious issue that and then the question is, can we actually factor that in a computer program? Okay. Now, let's look at it in another way. So Yoshi's driving his car in the street, and there's a ball that comes through, and this kid runs into the street, chasing the ball. Okay? Now, the question is, either strike the child, and the ball, or you can swerve, and there's a man walking his dog on the street. That's the two choices. Either kill the child, or swerve and hit the man with the dog. The dog will be okay. Because people are very sensitive about, Rabbi, don't kill dogs, please. They're cute and cuddly. Okay, fine. So, the kid, the kid, Now, here's the important question. This is why I'm bringing this case. Human drivers face this all the time. And we are going to make decisions differently. But the question is, should we prefer people who observe the law over people who break the law? It's clear in our case that the kid running into the road broke the law. He broke the law. So do we say to this machine, whoever breaks the law, their life is forfeited? And the guy, the pedestrian, he didn't break any law. He's just walking his dog. He's going to pick up after the dog. He's nice to his children. He's nice to everybody. He's not going to break the law. He doesn't break the law. Do we factor in morally someone who is doing an action that broke the law, and therefore maybe they deserve, in quotes, to die? Or whether we say that shouldn't matter. It's not a question of breaking the law or not. I gave you a case of a minor, a child. A child doesn't have the cognitive ability, according to the Torah, as an adult. He's not morally responsible for his decisions. Should that matter? So now the car is going to have to recognize this is a minor, this is a child, without the cognitive abilities of an adult. So therefore, run over the bicycles or the pedestrian. Another question that we should ask, which I think is very important, what if the pedestrian is the wife of the driver? That is, are we going to say that the relatives, he's going to see his wife and he'd rather cream his kid than to kill his wife? What if he swerves, he's only going to paralyze the pedestrian? But if he's going to hit the child, he's going to kill the child. Does that matter? Because the algorithm could probably figure that out. Right? The way that it's going to hit the angle, it's only going to paralyze him. So do we make that, is that a moral decision to make? Is it better to paralyze a person that didn't break the law, and rather than kill a child who did break the law?
Először a Gábornak volt ez az érdekes kérdés, amit nem lehet még lefordítani, hogy amikor ő maga a vezető, és nem pedig a Google Car, akkor az nem úgy működik, mert a Google Car-nál tényleg ő passzív módon gyilkol, úgymond. Még ha ő vezet, akkor már lehet, valószínűleg azt mondja, akkor igazán más lenne a törvény, akkor nem szabad. Na, a saját életét menteni más életének az árán, mert az már tényleg ugyanaz az eset, amikor az embert megfenyegetik, és akkor nem szabad. És most mondod egy másik példát, amikor a úttestre rohan egy gyerek előtte, és félre kéne látni a kormány, de ott is megy valaki a járdán. Itt az a kérdés, hogy aki az úttestre szaladt, ő megszegte a törvényt, hiszen nem szabad az úttestre szaladni az autó elé. Viszont a gyerek meg honnan tudja azt? Másrészt viszont meg lehet, hogy ki tudja számítani a számítógépben az algoritmus, hogyha meg a járdán gyalogosokat üti el, azok meg csak lebénulnak. Hát talán meg a szabad. Hát ez mind vele kéne kalkulálni az algoritmusnak.
Question so far? Okay. So what can the Torah tell us what can it contribute to the public discussions of these moral dilemmas? So we saw, as I brought up, that we have the idea of an act of killing and an act of saving. And that in no way are we allowed to do an act of taking a life in order to save a life. It is something that the Torah very clearly establishes a standard. And I think it's something that it might be difficult to apply to these questions, but at least we have a pathway to start answering these questions and trying to realize the complexity of the issue. That is to say, well, just let the machine make its own choice. That's for sure we are not allowed to do. And we are sort of required to think through and say, listen, we are not allowed to take a life. We're not allowed to take a life. And it doesn't mean the traveler or the people around, then, the Torah, we have to say that maybe we're going to prefer the lives of others as opposed to our own life. The Chazon Ish. I want to talk about the Chazon Ish that I brought up, thanks to your question. The Chazon Ish created the following scenario. A missile is fired, okay? It is heading to kill a person A. You have the ability to divert, a group of people A, let's say 10 people here. The missile is coming at them. But you have the ability to divert the missile and only kill one person. That's the scenario, right? So let's switch it to the Google car. The car is coming to plow into a bus of cute, wonderful little children. And it's going to push this, it's going to hit the van, and it's going to roll down the mountain, and they're all going to perish. Or, we're going to direct the car to swerve, right, and kill a person that is walking on the shoulder. The Chazon Ish says that this type of dilemma, we have to look at the act of the diversion. It's going to kill. But are we allowed to divert a missile or a car when it's headed to kill and kill an innocent bystander? What do you think he said? Are you allowed to?
No.
Anybody else? The right answer? Nobody wants to guess? His answer is not a no, and it's not a yes. It's a much more sophisticated answer. He says very clearly, he says there needs to be two things that you have to keep in mind. One, that the act that we are making is an act of saving a life. And two, that the act that we're going to do is going to save more lives than if we didn't act. That is, we are going to be mimayit. We're going to minimize the loss of life. If you have those two together, he says, maybe you're allowed to do this. Maybe. Maybe. He doesn't say yes, he doesn't say no. He says maybe. Ulai efshar. But you have to have two things connected. One, that the act that we're doing is an act of saving a life. And secondly, that the act itself is going to minimize the death of the amount of people being dead than if you don't do anything. Then maybe you're allowed to do this. Maybe.
No, the first is the same that was before.
It's the act of saving, but he adds another. He has another. Lema'et ibud.
Yes. The second. But the first to save is the same that was before the first scenario. Correct. Okay.
But then he says, "Ulai efshar." He doesn't say you can do it. It's allowed. It says maybe. You see that it's not so simple to argue that you are allowed to do an act and God forbid cause somebody else. Even if it's passive, even if it's an act of this, it's maybe. It's very, very difficult. Very difficult.
Ez nem ugyanaz, hogy van egy csoport, és azt mondják, hogy ha egy valakit kiadtok, akkor őt megöljük, és a többi megmenekül. Akkor nem szabad kiadni egy valakit.
It's similar to the case of a group of people, and the terrorists are telling them that you have to give one.
No. No, there no. Because then you're not allowed to give it all.
Why? What is the difference?
What's a very good difference? Because you are not allowed to turn somebody over to die. You see, there, if they come and they say, we want Yosele, okay? If they name somebody, then, okay, maybe. But if they say, just give us one, you can't do that, because you can't kill one person to save a group of people. They say, you decide what it is. There is a case of Shema ben Bichri. Shema ben Bichri was a rebel against King David. He was rebelling against the king, opened war against him, and the army, King David's army, pursued him, and he entered a city. The army came and surrounded the city. And a woman got on the walls and said, what do you want? They said, either you give us Sheva ben Bichri, not Shema, Sheva ben Bichri, or we kill everybody in the city. So she went there, she said, okay, 5 minutes. She comes back, she threw the head of Sheva ben Bichri, and they took the city. So everybody asked, how could you do that? That is, you're not allowed to turn over one person to save an entire city, it doesn't matter. So there are actually several answers to this. One answer is that he was guilty of a death penalty already, and they named him. And he was also, there's a svara, there's a concept in Judaism called roidev. Roidev is somebody who is endangering our lives actively. That is, by him entering this city, he is endangering the lives of everybody there, and therefore we are allowed to kill him. So this is different. So it could be that we could use the idea of roidev when somebody breaks the law. Let's say if let's say a car swerves in and now I have to decide whether I swerve and kill over here or kill them, they are roided. So there I have the right to hit them rather than kill anybody else. So that's as far as roided. So it's not the same idea. But good question. Okay, let's stop killing people and we'll move to another topic and we'll end with this. Go ahead. Did you want to add?
Elsősorban ez a Hazonisnak a példája, hogy igazán megkérdezték tőle egy eset után, hogy el tud téríteni egy rakétát, vagy micsodát, egy egész embercsoportot veszélyeztet, és eltéríti egy másik ember irányába. Hát ezzel az a nehéz, hogy ez viszont egy ártatlan embert veszélyeztet, miközben gyakorlatilag beleavatkozik, és ő kezd dönteni. Másrészt viszont meg hát mégiscsak kevesebben halnak meg. Azt mondta a Házon is, hogy igen, ugye kettő feltétele van. Egyrészt, hogy tényleg itten maga a cselekedet az valóban egy mentési cselekedet, az ugyanaz, mint az első sztoriban volt, hogy én igazából mentek és nem ölök. A másik meg, hogy hát mégiscsak kevesebben ember meg, de még ez a kettő megvan még akkor is, hogy talán lehetséges csinálni, de arra sem mondja, hogy lehet. Ebből láthatjuk, hogy a Házon is sem mer rá mondani egy ilyen verdiktumot, akkor az nem teljesen biztos a szituáció. És a másik meg volt, amit a Sia mondott, hogy egy csoport emberben mondják a terroristák, hogy mindenkit megölünk, ha nem adtok ki egy embert, vagy ha egy embert kértek, akkor nem ölünk mindenkit, akkor ezt nem lehet. Mert az ugyanaz, akkor nem az egy probléma, az rosszabb. Mert akkor konkrétan mi döntünk el valakit. Tehát akkor kik vagyunk mi, hogy eldöntsük azt, hogy ki legyen. És erre mondta, hogy igen, de még ezt a szituációt is lehet úgy módosítani, hogyha ők jelölik ki. Ha ők jelölik ki, az már egyáltalán nem biztos, és erre mondta ezt a Dávid királyos történetet, ahol ráadásul egy veszélyeztető ember volt, egy bűnöző volt, aki föllázadt a király ellen, és amúgy is halálbüntetést érdemelt meg, és amúgy is az egész közösséget veszélyeztette azzal, hogy oda ment. Szóval ott abból az esetből esetleg lehet ilyen hasonlatot tanulni erre is.
There are two other major areas that we could spend probably, a few hours discussing. One of them is the issue of liability, and the other issue is Shabbat. I'm just going to bring in a few ideas of liability, a few ideas of Shabbat, and we'll end. So we have this car, this machine, this robot. It's going to, let's say, cause damage. Who's liable? Is it the manufacturer of the car? Is it the programmer of the car? Is it the owner of the car? Is it the traveler in the car? Who is liable for what this car does? And I think that the Torah looks at liability in a very different way than we look at things in Western society. First, we have to determine what type of damages this thing does. Does the owner of the car, by sitting in this car, and he's going to press one button, right? Presses on button, it says, where do you want to go? He says, go home. And then the car says, thank you, sir. And the car goes. Is he responsible for everything that the car does? If a cat now runs in the street, and the car decides to swerve and hit a fence, is he liable to pay for the fence? Or can he say, that's not the decision that I would make, I would have run over the cat? Why not? I'd rather, run over the cat, which would cost me nothing, than to break a fence and now I have to pay for the fence and fixing the car. So he tells the guy, the owner of the house, listen, don't sue me, sue the programmer. And the programmer is going to say, what are you suing me for? That's the manufacturer. They told me to do this. That is, who has liability for damages? Is it considered under the category of human damages, nizkei adam, or is it nizkei mamon? Is it considered monetary damage? It's a question we're going to have to, is it nizkei esh? What is it? Is it like a man fires an arrow and whatever the arrow does he's responsible for? How are we going to look at this? And I think the Torah brings a very fresh perspective on understanding, making sure that we have a good understanding of what the issue of liability is.
Most akkor abba hagyjuk ezeket a gyilkolással kapcsolatos témákat, és el kell beszélni, két nagy téma van még, és mindegyiket legyen órákat. Egyébként említette közül, hogy ő részt is vesz ebben, tehát ő neki ez azért ilyen kedves téma, mert ő konkrétan tagja annak a csoportnak, akit ezzel megbíztak. Szóval ezért is sokat tud róla beszélni, és kettő nagy téma van még, az egyik ezen nezik ki, a károkozások, hogyha az autó kárt okoz, akkor kifizessen, fizethet esetleg a sofőr, hiszen ő az autó tulajdonosa, de hát ő csak azt mondja, hogy menjünk haza. És akkor mégis valami kárt okozott az autó, mert neki ment valami falnak, és tönkretette, lekarcolta, és csomót kellett fizetni, nem akar fizetni, ezt mondja, hogy fizessen a programozó. A programozó, nem én fizessen a gyártó. Ez az egyik, a másik téma, meg a Sábát, és mindegyikben egy kicsit belekóstolunk.
There's another idea. Let's say I own this car. And you want to borrow the car. So I said, okay. I program the car to go to your house so that the car will wait downstairs. It will call you using iPhone, right? And you'll come down and get in the car. But on the way, it causes an accident. Who's liable? Is it my responsibility because I sent the car? Or because it was coming to you that you're responsible for what happened? Even though it did not come into your possession. Question is, who is responsible and what part? Is it halfway? Did it leave 2 miles out or 2 kilometers out? Then it's your responsibility. And also, there's a Gemara about this. Of somebody borrows an animal. At what point, what stage does the animal, the liability shifts from the owner to the shoel, to the person, the borrower? Okay.
Ez is egy kérdés, hogy ha valakit meghívok magamhoz, küldöm utána a Google autómat. És útközben, miközben megy oda, már közben csinál egy balesetet, akkor most kifizessen. Ha megállapodunk, hogy az autó tulajdonos alapvetően fizessen, na jó, de most meg a másik kéri kölcsön, hiszen a tulajdonosnak egyáltalán nem kell. És erről van is egy van egy dolog, hogy egy állatot kér kölcsön, és az útközben azzal történik valami károkozás, akkor az már vajon a kölcsönkérője lett, és akkor a kölcsönkérőnek kell állni a cechet.
Shabbat. So let's say we are driving to the Sábáton with this Google car, and on the way there's a big traffic jam, and we realize we're not going to make it. So we decide to pull over, we're going to go to the nearest town and spend Shabbat at the town. But we have two options with regard to the car. The car can either stay at the side of the road and maybe cause an accident, or we could send the car to continue driving to wherever it needs to go, and then we'll pick it up later. So are we allowed to send the car on Shabbat to continue to where it went while we are keeping Shabbat in a different location? So it's a machloket actually in the Shulchan Aruch, whether we are allowed to have our machines work or not. It sounds like that the Shulchan Aruch paskins you'd be allowed, but the Ramah for Ashkenazim says it would not be allowed because of Zilut Shabbat. It's because it doesn't look good. So let's say this car actually could save a life. There's a pregnant woman who needs to go to the hospital on Shabbat. So there's in the Jewish neighborhood, you have this Google car that it does circles, right? It stops at 4 different places. And if a person needs to go into the hospital, they just walk into the car and sit. And the car will go to the hospital, they get out. And you could say that this car will minimize the breaking of Shabbat because there's no one driving it, no lights will turn on, nothing will, you're not affecting anything. It just does the circle all Shabbat. Question is, are we going to require Orthodox communities to buy this kind of car? Because it minimizes the breaking of Shabbat, but allows to take people to the hospital for wherever they need. Maybe we're going to say that this is the way that we have an obligation, that each community has a Google car. So if people have this car every month, every Shabbat, somebody programs the car to go to, every hour to stop at this place, go to the hospital and come back. Maybe not.
Stop at a shul as well.
That I don't know that you can use because it's only for pikuach nefesh.
But they use it in the elevator. It's very
correct. So that's the question. If it's but I don't know that it's so simple with regard to. There are people who are machmir in elevators also. So maybe the heter for if you're okay with using an elevator, you're probably going to be okay with the car. But if you're not okay with the elevator, you still might be okay with using the car to save your life. Because, go ahead.
Yes, but it's something urgent. So it doesn't seem to suffice just to stop at some places like a Shabbat elevator because it's too slow for people.
I'm just saying, but let's say you can do it very quickly. Okay. Or maybe you get into this car, once it senses somebody in the car, it goes straight to the hospital. It's possible to make it programmed this way. There's another question. What if this is the cars around us? That we know as we walk in the street, we are going to affect the movement of the car. It's going to see you, it's going to slow down, you're going to cross the street, it's going to stop. That is, you are activating this machine by your presence. So the question is, are we going to be allowed to walk in the street on Shabbat? Right, because of a person, yes, it's an actual question, yeah.
Without Google cars.
No, well, no, without Google cars, the question comes with regard to cameras, right? Because there are cameras everywhere, and by you walking, it is as if you're kotev, because your image gets imprinted in the camera. So, but they say and it's okay. But with this car, you are going to cause it to stop. Because you're going to stand in the crosswalk, and this car is going to come, it's going to stop. And then you're going to cross the street.
Not Google cars are also stopping, I hope.
But the not Google cars is a person who's making
if he's Jewish?
If he's Jewish, it's an old machlekes in Israel of what to do. So there are people who say that don't do this. Like when you see a car coming, face the other way. But in this Google car, it won't matter if you're facing the other way. It's going to slow down because it's going to recognize that someone is standing near. So you're going to have a much greater effect.
Mm-hmm.
There's an interesting discussion in Israel. The question is, do the companies that build these cars have to take seriously communities that say we don't want these cars in our community because we don't want them on Shabbat in our neighborhoods. Or they say, guess what? You know, it's your problem. That is, we're going to have a Shabbat mode to this car. That on Shabbat, these cars, you know, you press a button and
Just a
yeah, pretty much, right? Till Motzei Shabbos, and it'll do Havdalah by itself. You know, he'll come and meet you at the shul, honk outside. You know, you're done with Havdalah. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ezek a sábeszi kérdések is vannak, hogy sábeszkor ugye vallásos közösségekben van ez az életmentés miatt a sábeszkor autó, és hogy akkor őket lehet esetleg kötelezni, hogy Google autót vigyenek direkt, mert ott még kevesebb a sábeszegés azzal. Persze az is kérdés, hogy sábeszkor egyáltalán mehet egy autó magától, sábeszkor mehet magától bármi eszközön suhánú vagy vit, és askenázok szigorúan veszik, ezt is mondta. És még volt egy harmadik eset, amit most...
Megállnak az autók.
Ja, megállnak az autók előtted, az rossz, igen. Ugye Izraelben, ahol zsidók vannak, egy régi vita, hogy mész az utcán, és lelassít neked a zsidó sofőr, akkor te okoztad őt egy szombatszegésre. Akkor úgy csinálsz, mintha nem vennéd észre. Jó, de a Google autó, az mindenképpen észreveszi, vagy az mindenképpen leáll, nem nézegeti. És akkor már lehet kérdezni, akkor a Google-nak figyelembe kell venni, hogy keljenek nekik Sábát módot az autóra, hogy a sábeszkor egyáltalán ne is működjön, és hát ilyen kérdésekkel kell foglalkozni.
Questions, comments?
Wow.
Okay. So you can see that the Torah really has a lot to add to the conversation about technology because of its moral stance and what it stands for. Because it has a lot more to bring to the public sphere. And it's not simply that, you know, in the world of the yeshivot, they learn all these things that have nothing to do with the outside world. That's not true. It's just that the Jewish scholars decided not to participate in this sort of discussions on the outside. But I think that today we really have an opportunity to show the world the wisdom of the Torah and that really the Torah can help us understand, have a better understanding of moral problems, and to also present some solutions that will make a society much, much better. Thank you.
Szóval láthatjátok ezekből a dolgokból, hogy ez tényleg az, hogy a Tóra dolgnak van, mint hozzátenni a közösséghez.